Welcome back, and to know more wrap-up for the COMESA Summit, we are joined in the studio by Ambassador Mohammad Al Ashmawy, a member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Hello, sir, and welcome to our show. Sir, now we have Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn, who called for the members of the COMESA and the participants to rededicate their commitments to the regional integration. How do you see such a comment?
It is really a very important comment, and that's why Prime Minister Mahleb was there representing Egypt in this summit of the in Ethiopia, representing Egypt in the summit in Ethiopia. It is a manifestation of Egypt's dedication for the economic unity of the region. And in Egypt, during his visit, he also invited the presidents of this meeting to attend a tripartite meeting in Cairo in June. It will be the meeting of the three integration groups of Africa. One which was in Ethiopia, where Prime Minister Mahleb was representing Egypt in this meeting, and another one in the SADC, and the third one for West Africa. We have three groups in Africa. And the meeting in Cairo will be also a dedication for the unification of Africa in the economic matters. That's why President Mahleb was representing Egypt, and he was the head of a big delegation of ministers accompanying him during the meetings in Addis Ababa.
Okay, Hailemariam said that the summit was taking place at a time when the continent of Africa is moving impressively forward on the basis of sound policies, strong institutions, and a vibrant private sector. What is the role for the private sector in the integration of the African continent? What can the private sector add?
That takes us to what Prime Minister Mahleb said during the meetings, and he had this idea of telling the people over there, telling the presidents and the representatives of the African countries in Addis Ababa, how Egypt is dedicated to give the private sector a big hand in the matter of integration, economic integration in this group in Africa and in all over Africa during the meeting which will take place in Cairo in June. He also gave them what happened, gave them an idea about what happened in the meeting of Sharm el-Sheikh, the last economic conference, which was a really successful one. And he gave them the Egypt's intentions, especially in the matter of in the field of the role of the private sector in economic development.
Okay, Desalegn also noted that the inclusive and sustainable industrialization is a pillar for growth.
Yes.
What mechanisms are laid out for sustainable industrialization in Africa?
Really, the economic integration in the regional field, in the regional, basis, on the regional basis in Addis Ababa, that was a very important thing. And in the matter of industrialization, it is a good chance for Egypt, because the meeting of this sub-regional group is very important in the economic development of Egypt, and of course of all the African countries who are members of this group, because Egypt is playing a very important role, and it is a good, what I should say, it is a big, what I should say, it is a big venue for Egypt to for the Egyptian, what I said, industries, and it is a big market for Egypt. There's more than 300 million people in this sub-regional.
Okay, Egypt has called for establishing an industrial zone in Africa. How far such a step can benefit African countries and intercontinental trade and at the same time benefit Egypt?
Yes, we have priorities, of course, and we have this first priority as far as the national security of Egypt is concerned, is the Nile Basin countries. And now we have very good relations with the visit of President Sisi to Khartoum and after that to Addis Ababa, and with the signature of the last, what I should say, the last convention of for the Nile, for the problem of the high dam, for problem of the dam in
Ethiopia, the high dam in Ethiopia.
Egypt is playing a very important role, and we are now on the verge or on the beginning of returning back to Africa.
Okay, how is Africa moving in the path of job creation? What are the steps taken in order to make job for its people?
We are very much concerned in Egypt with the small-scale industries, and also in what I should say, there is the small-scale industries and also the small business, which is very important, which is giving a chance for labor and to make something for unemployment, because unemployment is a big problem in Egypt and in the African countries. That's why we are giving importance for the small scale and little industries.
Okay, and what's hindering Africa from becoming a major economic bloc similar to that of the EU?
Well, there is so many reasons behind that. If we come, we have a very important reason, is the line of transport between Egypt and the African countries. We have so many lines, and we have to promote the lines of transport, how to take the commodities from Egypt to the African countries. The African countries, we need to have a very small things to take our commodities over there. If we send it to the African countries, we have to open new routes for Africa, new transport lines. And now Egypt is now giving an importance to the line between the Lake of Victoria in Uganda and the Mediterranean Sea. There will be a line for transport.
Okay, in the COMESA summit it discussed peace and security in the sub-region. How can Africa be self-dependent on solving its civil wars and crisis?
Well, during the meeting, of course, they are very much interested in discussing the problem of terrorism, the problems of disputes between the African countries. So it was not only the economic matters which are discussed during the meeting, but also there is political matters also. That's why they were very much interested, and they gave their importance. They said that they are very much concerned with the problem of terrorism. We have Boko Haram in Africa, and we have the problem of terrorism in the Middle East now. We have the problem of Yemen. So they are very much interested in returning back to peace and to do something to stop terrorism in the area, in Africa and in the Middle East.
And how can Egypt help solving the conflict in Africa, especially with the countries that have historical ties with Egypt, for example, South Sudan? What's Egypt's role in this issue? Well,
Egypt is very much also interested in that matter, and we have a special center here in Cairo with the Diplomatic Institute, a special center for peacekeeping since long time, and this center is giving, what I should say, giving its studies and so many things to the African countries to try to solve how to solve the problem. And Egypt also is taking place in the peacekeeping forces. We are taking place in the peacekeeping forces in Cote d'Ivoire. And in Sudan also we have some police officers, and we have police officers, and we have so many people who are studying these problems in Africa, and we have our own people taking part in the peace process and in the peacekeeping in African countries.
How can Egypt show more integration with the Black continent, like the historical role in Africa that Egypt played for a very long time? How can we restore such a role once again?
Well, since long time, Egypt has, Africa, there was what we should say the African economic unity. There should be an African economic, integration for the whole African countries. But the African countries to the African Union was taking a very important approach. We have to make economic integration in the regional field in South Africa, in East Africa, and in West Africa. There is groups for economic integration, and these three groups will have a tripartite conference in Egypt in June. In Cairo, in Sharm el-Sheikh. There will be a very important meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh. So, like the Arab world now, in some time we had the Gulf group, and we have a group for West. We have the group for that was sometime in with Tunisia, Morocco, and Libya. There was a meeting for these three countries. There was a meeting for the Gulf countries, and there sometime there was a meeting between Egypt, Libya, and Sudan. So Africa was also taking this approach, but they were much more successful than the Arab world. There's an integration now in West Africa, an integration, the regional, sub-regional, meetings and sub-regional groups, and these three groups will take place. There will be an important conference in Cairo for the whole African unity and for the African integration to make a big market for Africa.
Okay, regarding Ethiopia, how can Egypt strengthen its relation with a country like Ethiopia?
So many things. During the visit of Prime Minister Mahleb, he was in very good contacts with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Desalegn, and also the ministers who were accompanying Prime Minister Mahleb, the Minister of Electricity, the Minister of Trade and Industry, and also the Minister of what I should say, the minister in charge of, there were three ministers with the Prime Minister, and they were in good contacts with their people, with their counterparts in Ethiopia, to develop the relations between the two countries in so many fields. In the field of, what I should say, electricity, in the field of energy, in the field of course, Nile water, and which is
the
very
main
important.
issue with
yes.
Yeah. So we have lots of fields that we can cooperate with Ethiopia,
Yes,
from your own point of view.
Of course, very important. It's a matter of national security for Egypt, so it's a big priority.
So we
Egypt.
have to make good relations with a country like Ethiopia.
Also in the matter of making routes in Africa. Now there is a route of 180 kilometers in Ethiopia. Egypt will take place. Egypt is going through the Egyptian companies like the Al-Muqawwilun Al-Arab, the Arab Contractors, and some other companies. They will also help Ethiopia in making more than 50,000 kilometers of routes inside Ethiopia.
Well, Ambassador Mohammad Al Ashmawy, member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs, thank you for joining us, and welcome once again to Africa Today.
Thank you very much.
Well, this brings us to the end of our show. I'm Dina Mamdouh. Please stay tuned.